Welcome, fellas. First of all, I note that this is a personal opinion and experience. I don't want to depress anyone. These things and incidents that cannot be seen on video anywhere, probably because it's too discouraging. At least we don't see interesting things like this anywhere, anything that will be discussed here in this video. I'm sharing these with you because on the one hand, you can't see them anywhere, and on the other hand, since you can't see them anywhere, no one would believe me if they didn't see them. And of course, there will again be one or two things that slightly worsen the enjoyment factor, and on the other hand, just an interesting one thing that is incomprehensible to me. Another couple of phenomena about interesting things in War Thunder. These graphical bugs, let's not even bother. We've almost become accustomed to it lately. Maybe the so-called invisible wall, The last time we saw a similar track-matching bug with Dumbbeer that was in a game called The Crew, maybe back in 2015.
Nem, az fölküldi.
Várjál, térképen is látszódik ez a cucc.
Igen?
Aha.
The game becomes more and more interesting. So far, this is probably the most interesting thing I've seen in my career in War Thunder. Well, let's put the crap aside. This is a phenomenon that my friends and I experience quite often, interestingly only in air-realistic battles. Interestingly, we are got a hit. Our plane instantly literally breaks apart. In these scenes, the tail part, but the problem is that in fact, with every plane with which I or we go on and or use. I don't know how they always manage to kill me like this, but it's quite frustrating that this is what the game is about. And of course, it's also somewhat interesting. We've come to the scene that's actually been going on for months. I really don't know how they do this. Seriously. This was already discussed in a previous video, where I spoke on the Wyvern S4 bundle, and this phenomenon was also mentioned then. Let's leave aside the interesting fact that if you start with a bomber, the enemy fighters are at your altitude before you get to the bombing point. I note that somehow none of the fighters climbs that speed that high for me. Whatever, but this is it, that I'm on the edge of death, dick holy high altitude up, more than 20-25 kilometers from the battlefield, and he somehow knows that I'm here. Lay people could say, the contrail. After a certain distance, you can't see the enemy's condensation. And yes, the tail again. This happens to us 90% of the time when we play bombers. Impossible. And here is an older video where the same thing happens. How does he know I'm here? And how the hell does he climb to that altitude at superjet speed? Because it's not a top-tier jet, but it doesn't matter, because they climb up in the same speed with a propeller plane. Even if I use a BV-238 one shot to me again, I would understand, as it is large and visible from afar. One shot again feels like aim hack, like an FPS game for my character. Here, the pilot. Can such a thing exist in this as well? Again. And again. What the hell is going on with the game? I just said here that he got me with one shot, but there was nothing wrong with the plane, no damage to the fuselage, the wing, the window, anywhere, but yet I died instantly. It smokes a bit, but the most of players with flaming planes like a meteor still play smoothly. In short, I or we get instant death from one hit, but we gives 2-3 critical hit in one plane. The enemy planes is flaming, loose wings, and they just don't care, fly away, kill 2 more team member. That just a random recorded video, cause why not? As in the previous video what I narrated, a few things were discussed, and like in the DAFQ Moments video, the oddities were visible. That's really the point. I would mention it the matchmaking, but it's not worth a lot of words. Why? For example, with a 5.7 BR tank, 80% of the cases it throws to up tier like 6.7 BR. Example, with a Sherman M4A376W, you are worth nothing to a Tiger II Henschel, and that's all about it in short. A more specific example, I got the Battle Pass Premium T-10A Soviet heavy tank at 7.7 BR, at its own level, have adequate armor and firepower. But since it usually up-tired to 8.7 BR matches, there, for example, my armor is useless against a Tanque Argentino Mediano, in short, TAM. Because they operate with APFSDS, it cuts through me like a knife through butter. If there are already 200,000 players, why can't they play at their own battle rating level? I could tell you about things that don't make sense to me, like the market. When at the end of 2017, the Festive Quest winter event, I grinding out the premium Britain AEC MK2 and the premium German disguised USA M10 Wolverine Panther Ersatz M10, there was no chance to turn them into coupons. I got them in the tech tree instantly. After 3-4 years, I see the AEC being sold on the market for more than €1,000. To this day, I don't know how to turn vehicles that were immediately put into the tech tree in the past into coupons. In the same year, the vehicles on my account were worth more than €1,000. I remember the Sonderkraftfahrzeug 2344, the Ersatz, and the AEC. Only these were worth about €4,000 at that time. I admit, it hurt a little. I was already in full brain-dead mode during these scenes. Here, in these next two scenes, the 2S-38 Russian premium overpowered light tank. Note, all saints bend their hands towards there. Surprisingly, in top tier, the artillery is worth nothing in 98% of the cases. Strangely enough, in both scenes, I was taken out with it. Again, surprisingly, the owner of the 2S-38 tank got me with artillery.
Again? Again?
Here, I already said, in my completely uninterested mood, the person who shot me accidentally knew, behind a lot of trees and bushes, what kind of tank I was with and where my tank weak point was. How interesting, isn't it? Normally, these would not be worth mentioning. But when you experience this hundreds of times, and what's worse, that it's becoming more and more frequent, almost non-stop, it's a bit frustrating and intriguing. Eventually, you get to the point where these interesting things don't happen to you that turn into your advantage. Then you start to get tired of it, because your artillery doesn't hit anyone, you can't see the other players through 6 hectares of forest, and your shots and hits don't hit the target as they should in principle. That's enough for today. Again, not hostility and not incitement, only personal experience and opinion. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day.
Jól, hogy megmentettem a csávót, bátyja. Behúztam, és még meg is javítom, geci.
Fel előtte. Te egy igazi gentleman vagy.